When you begin to live by the 90% rule, you realize that most of what you once feared was an illusion. What remains, the 10%, is life itself. These are the real challenges, the moments that truly test your strength, patience, and wisdom. The 10% is not there to harm you, it exists to awaken you. Once you stop wasting energy on imagined fears, you gain the clarity and courage to face what's real. The truth is, reality is never as cruel as the mind's imagination. The situations you encounter may be uncomfortable, but they are always manageable when you meet them with awareness. Fear fades the moment you stop running from it and start facing it directly. Anxiety cannot survive in the light of truth. Living inside the 10% means learning to meet life as it is, without distortion. When something goes wrong, you don't fall into panic, you respond with calm understanding. You realize that every problem has a lesson, and every difficulty hides a path to strength. The mind's habit is to exaggerate, to make mountains out of pebbles. But when you are grounded in the present, you see things for what they are, temporary and solvable. This awareness doesn't remove challenges, but it removes unnecessary suffering. You deal only with what's real, not what's imagined. The 10% is where true growth happens. It is where you learn to trust yourself, to rely on your inner stability rather than circumstances. When life tests you, you realize you can endure more than you thought. The human spirit is far stronger than fear allows you to believe. Every time you face a real difficulty, instead of escaping into anxiety, you become more centered. The energy once lost to worry becomes available for action, for clarity, for peace. You stop reacting and start responding. You meet fear with awareness, pain with patience, and uncertainty with trust. There is deep peace in living this way. You no longer carry the weight of unnecessary fears. You move lightly, because you deal with only what is actually in front of you. If something happens, you meet it. If nothing happens, you rest. This simplicity is power. It brings balance to your mind and freedom to your heart. Life no longer feels overwhelming because you have stopped living inside your imagination. The 90% of fear that never comes true has lost its control over you, and now you live fully within the truth of each moment. The 10% that remains becomes your teacher, not your enemy. It shapes you, sharpens you, and strengthens your awareness. Through it, you discover resilience and wisdom that no comfort could ever teach. The mind once ruled by anxiety now becomes clear and steady. You begin to see that peace was never about avoiding difficulty. It was about meeting reality without fear. And when you do that, anxiety has no place left to hide. You are no longer a prisoner of your thoughts. You are awake, present, and free. The more you think about anxiety, the stronger it becomes. This is the trap that so many fall into, believing that they can think their way out of fear. The mind tries to solve anxiety by analyzing it, questioning it, dissecting it. But the problem is that anxiety itself is born from thought. You cannot escape a fire by adding more flames. The more you try to think your way to peace, the more thoughts you create, and soon the noise in your head becomes unbearable. The key to destroying anxiety is to step out of the mind, not go deeper into it. You must shift from thinking to feeling, from analysis to awareness, from mental noise to bodily presence. When anxiety arises, the mind begins to spin stories. Something is wrong. I can't handle this. What if it gets worse? Every thought adds another layer of tension. The body reacts as if danger is real, even when there is none. You feel the heart race, the breath shorten, the muscles tighten. This is where awareness must step in. Instead of arguing with the thoughts, come back to your body. The body never lies, while the mind lives in time, in the past or the future. The body exists only in the present. It is your doorway back to reality. When your thoughts run wild, place your attention on your breath. Feel it move in and out. Feel your feet touching the ground, your hands resting on your lap, your chest rising and falling. These simple sensations pull you out of the illusion of thought and back into the truth of the moment. The mistake many people make is trying to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. That might bring temporary comfort, but it doesn't bring true peace. Real freedom doesn't come from changing your thoughts. It comes from no longer being controlled by them. Watch your thoughts the way you would watch clouds pass through the sky. Some are dark, some are light, but none of them define the sky itself. You are the awareness behind them. When you begin to see thoughts as just mental events, they lose their power to control your emotions. The mind can be a tool, but it must never be your master. When you learn to observe it instead of obey it, you find space between your thoughts, a stillness that cannot be touched by fear. In that stillness, anxiety has no place to live. The mind may still speak, but you no longer react to every word. You become the witness instead of the participant. This is where true peace begins, not by controlling your thoughts, but by seeing them clearly and letting them pass. When the storm of thinking fades, you realize that anxiety was never real danger. It was only the echo of imagination. The body returns to calm, the breath deepens, and silence fills the space that once held fear. You cannot think your way to peace. You can only return to presence. And presence, once found, becomes your unbreakable refuge. Acceptance is the quiet power that dissolves the roots of anxiety. Most people believe that peace comes from controlling life, making everything perfect, predicting every outcome, and preventing anything from going wrong. But the more you try to control, the more anxious you become, because life refuses to obey your demands. It moves with its own rhythm, often unpredictable and beyond your control. Anxiety thrives in resistance. Every time you say, "This shouldn't be happening," you create tension. Every time you fight reality, you drain your energy. The truth is simple. Peace begins the moment you stop fighting what is. Acceptance is not about giving up or being passive. It's about seeing life clearly, without trying to force it to match your expectations. When you accept, you release the illusion of control that fuels anxiety. The human mind craves certainty. It wants to know what will happen next, and when it cannot know, it fills the gaps with fear. But life is built on uncertainty. It always has been. The rain may come, the wind may change, people may leave, opportunities may fall apart. This is the nature of existence. To live without anxiety, you must stop trying to make life certain, and instead learn to rest in uncertainty. When you can say, "I don't know what will happen, but I trust myself to handle it," your mind begins to relax. Trust is the antidote to control. Acceptance also means allowing your emotions to exist without judgment. When you feel fear, sadness, or frustration, your instinct may be to push them away, but resistance strengthens what you resist. Every emotion you suppress gathers power in the shadows of your mind. When you allow it, when you say, "Wes, I feel this," it begins to lose its hold. Emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. They do not stay forever unless you cling to them. By allowing them to flow, you free yourself from their control. The paradox of acceptance is that once you stop fighting anxiety, it starts to dissolve. When you stop trying to make every feeling disappear, you stop feeding the fear of fear itself. Anxiety feeds on the belief that it should not exist. But when you accept it as part of your experience, it loses its importance. You see it as temporary weather passing through the sky of awareness. It may rain, it may thunder, but the sky remains untouched. You are that sky. The thoughts and emotions are only clouds. Acceptance is not a weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It requires courage to let go of control and trust the flow of life. It is the courage to say, I may not like this moment, but I am willing to be with it. From that willingness, peace begins to bloom. When you practice acceptance, anxiety no longer finds space to grow because the soil of resistance has been removed. What remains is clarity, stillness, and an unshakable sense of freedom within yourself. Fear itself is not the enemy. It is a form of energy that becomes destructive only when it has no direction. Anxiety arises when this energy is trapped within you, when it has nowhere to flow, no outlet to move through. The body tightens, the breath shortens, and your thoughts spiral into chaos. What you call anxiety is often not danger, but energy stuck in your system. The second key to destroying anxiety lies in learning to channel this energy rather than resist it. When fear arises, the instinct is to run from it or suppress it, but suppression is like pressing down boiling water with a lid. The pressure will eventually explode. Transformation begins when you allow this energy to move through awareness instead of letting it rot inside the mind. Every time you feel anxious, your body is trying to speak to you. It's saying, something needs attention. The problem is that you listen to the noise in your head instead of the message in your body. Your body understands how to balance itself, but your mind interferes by adding stories, judgments, and worries. You begin to think, why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me? And that questioning multiplies the tension. The truth is, nothing is wrong with you. It's just energy rising to the surface. If you learn to give it space, through breathing, movement, or still observation, it dissolves naturally. Energy only becomes anxiety when it is denied. When it is allowed, it becomes vitality. This is why physical practice is essential for mental peace. You cannot think your way out of a feeling. You must move your body to shift its energy. When you train, breathe deeply, or meditate with awareness, you give fear a path to flow. Every deep breath is a message to your nervous system that you are safe. Every mindful movement teaches the body to release what it holds. When you ignore the body, you trap the mind inside an invisible prison. But when you reconnect with it, the walls of anxiety begin to fall. The body becomes your grounding force, your anchor in the storm of thoughts. To channel fear is to stop fighting it and start working with it. Instead of saying, I don't want to feel this, say, I am ready to feel this fully. When you open to it, fear transforms into awareness, alertness, and strength. The energy that once created panic now sharpens your focus. This is the secret. The same energy that fuels anxiety can fuel clarity if you guide it correctly. It is never about getting rid of fear, but about reclaiming it as part of your inner power. The moment you accept fear as energy, not as an enemy, you stop being its victim. You become its master, and in mastering this energy, you begin to see that anxiety was never something to destroy. It was something to understand, to direct, and to transform into strength. There is a powerful truth hidden in simplicity. Most of the anxiety you feel does not come from what is happening right now. It comes from what your mind thinks might happen. You carry imaginary burdens, replaying possible outcomes that never arrive. You are fighting shadows that have no substance. The 90% rule reveals this: 90% of the things you fear will never happen, and the other 10% are never as bad as you imagine. Think about that for a moment. 90% of your suffering is created by your mind, not reality. The mind, when left untrained, becomes a storyteller that never stops speaking, predicting, analyzing, judging, fearing. But what if you stopped believing every story it told? What if you could separate truth from imagination? That is the path to freedom from anxiety. Anxiety is often mistaken for reality, but in truth, It is mostly imagination disguised as truth. The first principle of the 90% rule teaches that most of what causes your anxiety is fiction created by your mind. When you feel anxious, your body reacts as if something terrible is happening right now. But if you look closely, there is usually nothing immediately threatening around you. The fear is in the future, in the stories your mind tells about what might go wrong. You imagine rejection before it happens, failure before you even try, loss before it ever arrives. The mind becomes a movie screen, constantly projecting worst-case scenarios, and you, sitting in the audience, forget that you are only watching a film. You begin to believe every scene as if it were unfolding in real time. This illusion is powerful, but it is also fragile because it disappears the moment you see it for what it is. Imagination. Your mind is designed to protect you. It remembers pain and tries to predict it before it returns. This is why it constantly simulates possible dangers. It believes it's keeping you safe, but what it actually does is steal your peace. The mind doesn't distinguish between imagined danger and real danger. When it imagines failure, the body releases stress hormones as if the failure is happening now. You live in a storm that doesn't exist. Every "what if" thought becomes lightning across the sky of your mind, and the longer you stare at it, the more real it seems. But if you pause and look directly at the present moment, you'll notice something simple. Nothing is happening. The future hasn't arrived, and the past is gone. All that truly exists is this breath, this step, this heartbeat. The way to destroy this fictional anxiety is to bring your attention back to what is real. Ask yourself, is this happening right now, or is it only happening in my head? That single question breaks the illusion. When you catch your mind predicting disaster, do not fight it. Observe it. See it as a movie, not as your life. Observe how quickly thoughts appear and vanish, how emotions rise and fade like waves. The more you watch without attachment, the weaker those thoughts become. They feed on belief, and when belief is removed, they dissolve. It's important to understand that awareness is not the same as thinking positively. It is not about convincing yourself that everything is fine, but about seeing clearly what is true and what is imagined. When your awareness grows, the mind loses its power to deceive you. You stop mistaking thoughts for facts. You stop chasing every "what if" like a frightened animal. You begin to live in the only moment that truly exists. Now, that is where anxiety cannot survive, because the present moment has no imagination, no projection, no future. It only has reality, and reality, when seen clearly, is never as frightening as the mind's stories. This is the heart of the first rule. Most of your anxiety is fiction. And the moment you realize this, you begin to wake up from the dream.